She always thought I was naive. That was her greatest mistake. For years, my wife believed she was living with a man too blind, too trusting, too soft-hearted to see the truth right in front of him. She thought I didn't notice her late-night bathroom breaks, where she'd slip out of bed with her phone pressed tightly against her chest. She thought I didn't hear the faint clicking of the screen, the muffled giggle that drifted through the door at 2 in the morning. She thought I was too stupid to question why she suddenly showered before work when she used to leave the house with messy hair and sleep still in her eyes. But I saw everything. I heard everything. I remembered everything. And most importantly, I said nothing. Not because I was weak. Not because I was afraid of confrontation. But because I was patient. I understood that explosions burn bright and fade quickly, while silence builds pressure until it destroys everything. But before I tell you how it all fell apart, I need to go back to when I thought I was the luckiest man alive. We met in college. She was radiant, the kind of woman everyone noticed when she entered a room. Not just because she was beautiful, but because she had that rare magnetism, a kind of gravity that pulled people in her orbit. She could make a stranger feel like they were the most important person in the world with nothing more than a smile and a laugh. And somehow, she chose me. I was the quiet one, the guy who preferred library corners over crowded parties, who was more comfortable with a book than a beer pong table. But she noticed me. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she'd confused me for someone else. But no, she really wanted to know me. Our first date was simple. Coffee at a little campus cafe. I remember the way she leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on mine, as if everything I said was fascinating. It was intoxicating, that attention. And when she laughed at my nervous jokes, it felt like sunlight cracking through clouds. From there, it was a whirlwind. Study sessions turned into dinners. Dinners turned into nights where we stayed up until dawn, talking about dreams and fears and futures. When she told me she loved me, I believed it with every fiber of my being. We built a life after graduation. A modest house, steady jobs, a dog that chewed through 3 pairs of shoes before learning better. On the outside, we looked perfect. People envied us, told us how lucky we were. And for a while, I agreed. But perfect facades don't last forever. The first crack came small, almost unnoticeable. She started spending more time on her phone. At dinner, while we watched movies, even in bed. I'd ask what was so important, and she'd smile, kiss my cheek, and say, "Just work stuff. You know how it is." Except I didn't know. I'd never seen work make someone giggle at midnight. Then came the changes in her routine. Late meetings at the office. Girls' nights that never included photos or stories afterward. New outfits, new perfume, all purchased without explanation. I told myself it was stress, that we were just in a rough patch, that I was overthinking, being paranoid. But deep down, a seed of doubt had already been planted. One night, I woke up to an empty bed. I found her in the bathroom, sitting on the closed toilet lid, phone in hand, smiling in the glow of the screen. When she realized I was standing in the doorway, her whole body jolted like she'd been caught stealing. "What are you doing?" I asked. She laughed nervously. Couldn't sleep, just scrolling. But she clutched the phone against her chest like it was a secret treasure, and in that moment I knew. I didn't have all the details, but I knew. She was cheating. Do you know what it feels like to sleep beside someone you know is betraying you? It's like lying next to a stranger who wears your wife's face. You hear every breath, every shift in the sheets, and wonder who they're really dreaming about. Every time her phone buzzes on the nightstand, it feels like a dagger in your ribs. I stopped sleeping. Nights stretched endlessly, filled with thoughts that gnawed at me. Who was he? Did he know about me? Did he know she had a husband who paid the bills, fixed the leaks, shoveled the driveway? Did he laugh at me the way she laughed at her screen? I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached, and wonder why. Why wasn't I enough? What had I done wrong? But then another thought came. Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was her. Maybe the woman I fell in love with never really existed. Maybe she was just a mask she wore until it slipped. That realization changed everything. I stopped thinking about saving the marriage. I stopped fantasizing about catching her in the act and winning her back. No, that wasn't the path anymore. If I confronted her, she'd twist it, make me the paranoid husband, the crazy one. If I left quietly, she'd run to him and never once feel the weight of what she'd done. I wanted more than escape. I wanted her to see herself clearly, stripped of her lies. I wanted her to feel the emptiness she had left in me. That's when the idea formed. Not rage, not violence, revenge. Something quiet, methodical, unforgettable. So I played along. I smiled. I kissed her goodnight. I told her I was planning a surprise for us, something to reignite the spark. Her eyes lit up. She thought it was a victory. She thought I was clinging to her, desperate to fix what she had already destroyed. I booked the tickets. I reserved the hotel. I told her it was a romantic getaway, a chance to leave stress behind. She squealed, hugged me, kissed me like a woman in love. But I saw through it. Behind her excitement, I saw the calculation in her eyes. This wasn't about us. To her, it was freedom, an alibi. A few days away with her clueless husband where she could text her lover without suspicion. What she didn't realize was that she wasn't going on vacation. She was walking straight into the stage I had built for her downfall. The tickets were booked. The plan was set. But in the days leading up to our romantic getaway, the weight of her betrayal pressed down on me harder than ever before. Because patience isn't easy. It eats at you. It whispers in your ear at 3 in the morning. Why are you still here? Why don't you just leave? And some nights I almost did. Some nights I almost packed my bags, walked out the door, and left her to whatever false fantasy she had built with him. But no, walking away silently would have given her freedom. She would have cried crocodile tears for a week, then skipped happily into his arms with a story about her abusive, paranoid husband. That wasn't good enough. She needed to see. She needed to feel. The night before our trip, I caught her lying again. We were sitting on the couch. She was pretending to scroll through Instagram, laughing at memes. But the way her thumb barely moved, the way her eyes flicked down quickly and then back up, told me everything. She wasn't scrolling. She was messaging him. I leaned closer, pretending to peek. She instantly tilted the screen away, heart skipping, lips tightening in irritation. What? She snapped. Nothing, I said with a smile. Just curious. She forced a laugh, but I saw her fingers tighten around the phone, the tendons in her hands stiff as steel. It was like she believed if she held on tight enough, her lies wouldn't spill into the open. Later that night, when she thought I was asleep, she slipped out of bed again. The glow of her phone lit up the hallway as she padded toward the bathroom. And lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, I knew something for certain. After this trip, there would be no turning back. I barely slept at all before the flight. My body ached with exhaustion, but my mind wouldn't rest. I thought about our early years, the little moments that used to mean everything. The way she used to wait at the window when I came home from work. The way she laughed when our dog jumped on the couch, even though she pretended to be annoyed. The way she used to reach for my hand at traffic lights. Those memories hurt more than her lies, because I couldn't tell anymore if they'd been real or if they were just part of the mask she wore until she grew bored of me. And so I lay awake, my chest heavy with grief, anger, and determination. I let those emotions feed the plan, sharpen it, make it something I could hold on to when doubt clawed at me. Because yes, I doubted. A part of me still whispered, what if you're wrong? What if she's not really cheating? What if you're throwing everything away over suspicion? But then I remembered the late-night giggles. The perfume she didn't wear for me. The way she flinched when I touched her phone. No, I wasn't wrong. When the day finally came, she was radiant with excitement. Too radiant. She wore a new dress, one I hadn't seen before. She painted her lips red, sprayed herself with a fragrance she only started using recently. She looked like a woman going on a date, not a wife flying with her husband. At the airport, she clung to my arm, laughing, smiling, leaning into me. To the world, we were the picture of a happy couple. But I could feel the emptiness in her touch. I could see the way her eyes flickered down at her phone whenever she thought I wasn't looking. I wondered what she was telling him. Don't worry, it's just a trip. He's too clueless to know. Or maybe, I'll text you when he's asleep. Her lies didn't matter anymore. Soon, they'd collapse around her. On the plane, I pretended to sleep. She typed furiously on her phone under the blanket, her face glowing in the dim cabin light. I opened one eye slightly, just enough to watch her expression. The small smirk that curved her lips. The soft bite of her lower lip. She wasn't talking to a friend. She wasn't reading work emails. She was living in her secret world, the one where I didn't exist. And she had no idea that I was about to burn that world to the ground. We landed in a city far from home, a place where she knew no one, where she had no friends, no safety net. Perfect. As we walked through the bustling streets, I watched her marvel at everything like a child. The lights, the shops, the energy. She was euphoric. And for a moment, I almost felt guilty, almost. But then I remembered the empty nights, the hidden laughter, the years I spent thinking I was crazy for suspecting her. And the guilt vanished. At the hotel, she gasped at the view from our window. The river glittering under the city lights, boats drifting like ghosts across the water. She hugged me from behind, whispering, "This is perfect. You're perfect." And in that moment, I wanted to laugh. Perfect? No, I wasn't perfect. I was patient. I was calculating. I was the man she underestimated. We dressed up that evening, and I took her to dinner by the water. Candlelight flickered across her face, making her look softer, younger, almost like the woman I used to know. But when her phone buzzed in her purse, she flinched, eyes darting down before she quickly looked back up with a too bright smile. That was it. That was the moment my heart finally hardened. I wasn't sitting across from my wife anymore. I was sitting across from a liar, a stranger who wore her skin. And tomorrow morning, she would finally face the truth she had buried beneath her pretty little mask. Morning came slowly. I'd barely slept again. But unlike the restless nights back home, this time I wasn't drowning in doubt. No, I was steady, clear, sharper than I'd felt in years. The sunlight poured into the hotel room, casting long golden beams across the bed where she still slept, tangled in the sheets like nothing was wrong. She looked peaceful, innocent even. And that was the cruelest trick of all. How someone so deceitful could still look angelic when they closed their eyes. I stood by the window, sipping bitter hotel coffee, staring down at the city below. Cars moved like ants. People hurried to work. Boats carved paths through the glittering river. Life kept moving, and so would mine. But not with her. Not ever again. Because today I was taking control back. She stirred, yawning, her voice groggy and sweet. "Good morning." I turned, forced a smile, and kissed her forehead. She had no idea. "Morning. Get dressed. I thought we could walk along the river before breakfast." Her eyes lit up. She loved when I made plans. She thought it meant I was still invested, that I was still hers. But I wasn't hers anymore. I was my own. As she slipped into a dress and fussed with her hair, I watched her through the mirror. She hummed softly, like a woman in love, like a woman whose husband had just whisked her away on a surprise trip. But every note she sang was a lie. And soon, I would hold up the mirror she could never escape from, the truth. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of fresh bread from bakeries opening their doors. Couples strolled hand in hand, tourists snapped pictures, joggers darted past with headphones in. We walked side by side, her arm hooked through mine. She leaned against me, head resting on my shoulder for a moment. And if anyone had seen us, they would have thought, that's love. That's happiness. But beneath her smile, I could feel the tension. Her phone buzzed in her purse twice during that walk. Each time, she squeezed my arm tighter, her body stiffening, eyes darting nervously. I didn't say a word. I just filed it away. More proof. More nails for the coffin she'd built herself. By evening, she was practically glowing. She thought the trip was working. She thought my little gestures, the flowers from the hotel lobby, the surprise walk by the water, meant I was still the fool she'd written me off as. I booked a table at a beautiful riverside restaurant. Candles flickered between us, reflecting in the wine glasses. Music drifted softly from the corner where a violinist played. It was romantic, perfect, dreamlike. And that's when I chose to break the dream. Halfway through the meal, as she laughed at some fake story she'd told, I set my fork down and looked her dead in the eyes. "You know," I said softly, almost casually, "I've been thinking about us a lot lately." Her smile widened. Yeah? And? And I realized, I'm not stupid. The color drained from her face. The laughter froze in her throat. The clink of silverware and murmurs of nearby couples filled the silence between us. She blinked rapidly, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for the right line, the perfect excuse. But I didn't let her speak. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small envelope I'd prepared. Inside, printed screenshots of her late-night texts, her little love notes, the photos she thought were hidden. I slid it across the table. Her trembling hands tore it open. The moment her eyes scanned the words, her breath hitched. Her lips quivered. The fork in her hand slipped and clattered against the plate, drawing a few curious glances from nearby diners. She stammered. I can explain. No, I said firmly, my voice calm, steady, sharper than any scream. You've explained enough. All those nights you thought I was asleep? I wasn't. All those lies about late meetings, about needing space? I saw it all. I heard it all. You've been playing games, but I don't play anymore. She froze. No tears. Not yet. Just shock. For the first time, I saw her without the mask. Not the charming smile. Not the fake innocence. Not the carefully constructed facade. Just raw panic. And it was beautiful. I didn't drag it out. I didn't need to scream or cause a scene. The truth was heavier than any words I could hurl at her. She reached across the table, desperate, her fingers brushing mine. Please, just let's talk about this. We can fix it. I pulled my hand back, slow and deliberate. You don't get to fix me anymore. You don't get to decide how this ends. That night, back at the hotel, she tried everything. Tears, promises, even laughter, pretending it was all some huge misunderstanding. She clung to me in bed, whispering apologies into the dark. But I lay there, stone cold, staring at the ceiling, already thinking about the next morning. Because the final step of my plan was simple, brutal, and perfect. She would wake up thinking she still had a chance. She would believe the nightmare was over. And then she would find herself alone. I woke before dawn, quietly, calmly. I moved like a ghost, gathering my things, slipping my suitcase out of the room. She stirred slightly in her sleep, murmuring, reaching for me in the sheets. For a second, I just stood there, staring. This was the woman I'd once believed I'd grow old with. The woman I defended against everyone's doubts. The woman I sacrificed for, trusted, loved with everything I had. But love had died a long time ago. All that remained was justice. I left the envelope of her betrayal on the bedside table, next to a folded note I'd written the night before. Just one sentence. Your new life begins here, but without me. Then I walked out, suitcase in hand, and didn't look back. The lobby was almost empty when I walked out, suitcase wheels clicking softly across the polished marble floor. The air smelled faintly of coffee and fresh flowers from the hotel's arrangement. A receptionist gave me a polite nod, completely unaware that I was leaving behind more than just a room. I was leaving behind a marriage, a lifetime, a version of myself that had suffered in silence. I checked out quickly. My heart wasn't racing anymore. No trembling hands. No second thoughts. Only clarity. It felt like breathing clean air after years in a smoke-filled room. As the cab pulled away from the hotel, I glanced back once, just once. The tall glass windows reflected the rising sun. Somewhere inside, she was still sleeping, curled around an illusion that would shatter the moment she opened her eyes. And I smiled. Not the broken smile of a man betrayed. The calm, satisfied smile of someone who had taken control back. I imagined it vividly. She'd wake to an empty bed. Her first thought would be panic, a sick dread twisting her stomach. She'd reach for her phone, searching for a message, a clue. Then her eyes would land on the envelope. Her hands would tremble as she opened it again, staring at the evidence she couldn't spin, couldn't deny. And then she'd see the note. Just one line, but heavier than any speech I could have given her. Your new life begins here, but without me. I pictured her face crumpling, her breath catching, her chest heaving with sobs she couldn't control. She'd call my name, search the hallways, beg the receptionist for answers. But by then, I'd already be at the airport. No screaming match. No dramatic confrontation. Just silence. A silence that would haunt her louder than any words ever could. She was stranded. No money, because I'd taken her shared cards. No plane ticket, because I'd used both. No friends, no family, no lover nearby. Just her and the wreckage she had built with her own lies. For years, I'd felt like that. Alone, helpless, clinging to scraps of affection while she secretly fed her hunger elsewhere. Now she would finally taste the emptiness she had served me, bite by bitter bite. The irony was perfect. She'd thought this trip was a romantic escape, a chance to play both sides of her life with no consequences. Instead, it became her prison, a cage made of her own betrayal. As the plane lifted off, I pressed my head back against the seat and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. The flight attendants moved down the aisle, offering drinks. A couple across from me laughed softly, sharing headphones, watching a movie together. For a moment, I wondered if they would last, if their smiles were real, if one of them would one day sit in my seat, broken by the other's betrayal. But then I realized it didn't matter. That wasn't my story anymore. My chapter with her was closed. I wasn't the naive husband she thought I was. I wasn't the fool she believed she could control. I was the author of the ending, and I had written it with precision. Back home, I shut off my phone for 3 days. When I finally turned it back on, the flood began. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails filled with sobbing, screaming, begging, texts that swung wildly between apologies and accusations. How could you do this to me? Please, let's talk. You're heartless. You don't understand. I love you. Every word was empty. Every plea was poison. I didn't respond. Friends called me, too. Some said she tried reaching out to them, spinning wild stories about how I abandoned her. But when they asked what really happened, I told them the truth. No embellishments, no anger, just the truth. And the truth was more damning than anything I could have invented. Slowly, her mask crumbled. People stopped believing her. Her lover. Yes, I knew she'd call him desperate, expecting him to be her savior. Turned his back, too. After all, why would he stick around when the fantasy was shattered? When he saw her not as the exciting, mysterious woman sneaking away from a boring husband, but as a liar stranded by her own making? She lost me. She lost him. She lost the carefully constructed image she had worked so hard to maintain. And in the end, she was left with nothing but herself. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to that morning. The sunlight on her face as she slept. The stillness before the storm. And I wonder, did she feel it? Did some part of her know, deep down, that her empire of lies was about to collapse? Maybe. Maybe not. What I know is this. Revenge doesn't always have to be loud. It doesn't have to be violent or dramatic. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is silence. Leaving them with the weight of their own choices, forcing them to stare into the mirror they've avoided for so long. I didn't need to destroy her. I just needed to step aside and let her destroy herself. And she did. My life now? Quiet. Peaceful. Mine. I no longer wait up at night for footsteps in the hall. I no longer wonder who she's laughing with in the glow of her phone. I no longer feel the suffocating weight of doubt pressing on my chest. She gave me pain, but I gave her emptiness. And I walked away with something she'll never have again, dignity. Her new life began in that hotel room, far from home, with no money, no escape, and no husband to hide behind. And mine began the moment I walked out the door, suitcase in hand, free at last.